Hi guys, it's James from the Lore Masters, and we are back again with our third video in the set review, and this time we are reviewing all the Emerald cards. So as per the first two videos, there's 34 cards in this element, so I'm going to go through them one by one. I'm going to explain what's good, what's bad, what's usable, and what's not. So let's begin with Aladdin. So he's a 2-drop with 2/2 and ward with 1 lore point. This card is very handy to shift into the 7-drop Ruby Aladdin, and the fact your opponent cannot target him with bits as well makes him very handy. Means that he isn't going anywhere unless your opponent uses some AoE board damage like grab your sword. So he's quite handy. You usually pair him with the 3-drop Red Aladdin, and then you can play red-green with Aladdin and all those cool tricks. It is worth playing if you are running obviously red-green with the Aladdins. But you know, you don't have to be running green to use that. You can just use red and something else. Yeah, it's not bad card at all. Okay, so Beast Wolfsbane. He's a 5-drop uninkable with 4/4 and 2 lore points with Rush, and the ability when you play this character, exert all opposing damaged characters. So this card was meant to work with Tinkerbell Giant Fairy. So you would play the 3-drop Tinkerbell on turn 3. You'd shift into the Giant Tinkerbell on turn 4, damage all your opponent's stuff, and then you'd play this on turn 5, exert them, and run over things. The fact is, he's only a 4/4, so he isn't going to be defeating many of the bigger things in combat. The rush is quite nice, but yeah, like I say, against the bigger things in the format, he's not going to be that great, but he is still very solid in the Steel Emerald deck. I wouldn't use him in anything else. Cheshire Cat. So we've known about this one for a while. It's a 3-drop, 0/3 with 2 lore points. When this character is challenged and banish a challenging character. This is very useful in one of the, I would say, lore rush decks. So you play lots of annoying little characters like Flynn Rider, like Cruella Deville, like Cheshire Cat, and try to quest to 20. While being as awkward to remove as possible. So Cheshire Cat does fit that bill. It does not do anything if your opponent deals with it via damage, so things like fire the cannons, things like Tinkerbell's damage, things like that, it doesn't trigger. And you do not get to choose what you banish, it's whatever actually banishes in combat. So if your opponent does finish it off with something small like a 1-drop, that's what it will lose. So it's okay in that regard, but it has a weakness as well. Say Cruella Deville. When this character is challenged and banished, you may return chosen character to its player's hand. Very solid 2-drop. Like I said previously, in that deck that runs a lot of annoying kind of cheap characters that quest to 20, she is quite important. She does combo well with some of the green songs that we're going to see in a minute. But yeah, she's just a solid card because your opponent's going to have to get rid of it at some point, and they're going to get a character bounce back to their hand. It is a little bit better later in the game than early because, you know, bouncing a cheap character is not that helpful, but, you know, she is quite decent throughout the game, really. Okay, so Duke of Wesselton. There's not much to say on this guy. Like I say, every colour has got a 1-drop 2/2 with 1 lore point. The only interesting thing about this one is it's got the villain tag, so it does work with the villain cards, which we're going to see soon. But other than that, there's nothing special. Okay, Flynn Rider, one of the better green cards in my opinion. So he's a 2-drop 1/2 with 2 lore points, which is already very good. But whenever this character is challenged, the challenging player chooses and discards a card. So that's not challenged and banished, that's challenged completely. So if your opponent has to do 2 attacks into it, they're going to have to discard 2 cards. You'll generally find that your opponent doesn't want to attack this card, so they're having to, unfortunately your opponent's going to be questing with 2 lore points every single turn. It's best to get rid of this card with something like Fire the Cannons or Grab Your Sword or Tinkerbell, so you don't have to discard. But it's quite a lot of early sort of tempo play just to put this down. You're going to probably gain quite a lot of lore points before your opponent is happy to discard to get rid of it. Go Genie on the job. So 6-drop uninkable. Again, one we've known about a while, and it's always created a lot of fun and havoc because it was quite powerful when the set we had was quite limited. But it's, yeah, it's a 3/4 with 2 lore points. Evasive, which is always fun. When you play this character, you may return chosen character to their player's hand. Yeah, very good. So obviously you're developing your board. You're bouncing your opponents back to the hand. The only issue is it's of course uninkable, so you can't run too many of them in your deck. But this is one of the better ones, and evasive is always a pain to deal with. Yeah, very, very fun card. If you're playing Emerald, you're probably going to have to slip a few copies of this in. And he has a big brother, which is Genie Powers Unleashed. So he's got Shift 6, evasive, and whenever this character quests, you may play an action with cost 5 or less for free. And he's got 3 lore points. I'm not entirely convinced by this card yet, because I have not seen any good combos with his ability. There is a 5 cost action card in Emerald, but it's not particularly very good. I think it's something like, it makes your opponent lose 1 lore point for every time you quest, something like that. Maybe paired with another colour, with an expensive action card, it might be worth it. But the fact you have to run several uninkable copies of this, and then several uninkable copies of the Genie before, is it worth it? Maybe not. But it's still a cool card anyway. Kind of looks like a green kind of Genie Power Ranger. So you've got the 2-drop Genie here as well. So he is a 2/3 with 1 lore point, so every colour has got one of these as well, but this time it's Genie, so you can use this one to shift into. But if you are using the 8-drop Genie, chances are you're probably just using the 6-drop Genie to shift onto. So you've got Hands, Scheming Prince, so he's a 4-drop inkable, 3/3 with 3 lore points, and the villain tag as well. Very high amount of lore for a 4-drop, and like I say, because he does fit into the villain archetype as well. The 3/3 means that he does easily die to something like a smash, but he does survive fire the cannons and also grab your sword, so he's not completely bad. I'd imagine, again, in one of those decks that rush to 20 lore, he'll be quite good, but he probably does have a home in the villain deck as well. So you got Horus, which is a 3-drop 4/3, with 1 lore point, no ability. It's not bad stats for it. Generally, you just want to kind of value the toughness over the power stat when it comes to characters, because this one is quite aggressively costed. He's not bad. I just think there's probably better cards that you could be playing over it. So Iago has got the ability to exert itself. Chosen character gains Reckless during their next turn. He's a 3-drop 1/4. Every time I see this card used in somebody's deck, he ends up being inked just because he's not particularly useful. Because what happens is you exert Iago to give something reckless, and that then means that the Iago is vulnerable, so your opponent just attacks Iago and just deals with it. And because it's only got 1 attack, it generally doesn't kill whatever you gave reckless to. So unfortunately that means that it's just not a very good card. And the fact it's a rare as well, I'm not going to be too thrilled if I actually pull one of these out of my pack. Okay, so we've got 3-drop Jasper. He's a 2/4 with 1 lore point and has the ability, whenever this character quests, chosen opposing character can't quest during their next turn. There seems to be a lot of Emerald cards that mess with your opponent questing, which kind of makes itself a little bit of a control deck. I think that's quite a cool idea. So this card definitely feels at home in that particular deck. You'll kind of see another card that goes really well with that kind of idea in a minute. But yeah, very solid 3-drop. Do recommend using it if that's what you want to play. Here he is. So he's 6-drop John Silver. So he's 5 attack, 5 toughness. Pick your fights. Whenever you play this character and whenever he quests, chosen opposing character gains Reckless during the next turn. And this basically means they can't quest, and he's got 2 lore points. So it messes with your opponent's stuff to stop them from questing. An overall pain in the arse to kind of deal with because he is fairly high statted, but he does fit into that stopping your opponent from questing strategy. So it's definitely worth an inclusion. Okay, so you got 5-drop Jumba Jakiba. Apologies if I've completely messed that name up. I have no idea how to pronounce it. He's 4 attack, 5 toughness with 2 lore points. Has no ability. He's just a big statted vanilla card, so we're not going to spend too much time on this one. So you got Cusco. He's a 5-drop uninkable with ward, and has the ability, when this character is challenged and banished, you may banish the challenging character. So very similar to Cheshire Cat, except you cannot choose him with different abilities. However, his stat line is not wonderful. I don't think there's a particular deck that this card fits into, because he's a bit too expensive to use in that Lore Rush deck that I mentioned earlier. He is a fun thing to drop from just in time, though. I have seen people use that because he is worth 3 lore points, and your opponent doesn't want to get rid of him. or can't use removal on him very easily. So that's kind of a combo you can do too. Lady Tremaine, Wicked Stepmother. When you play this character, you may return an action card from your discard to your hand. She's a 6-drop uninkable. We've known about this card for a while. It wasn't very good when the card pool was so small, and now that we know all of the cards, it's again not very good. If she was a little bit cheaper, if she was inkable, if her stat line was better, there's a lot of ifs here, but any of them were any better, she probably would be playable. But as it stands, there's not anything worth returning from your discard to your hand to warrant paying her cost. Okay, so you got Mad Hatter. It's a 5-drop inkable, 2/4. Whenever this character is challenged, you may draw a card, 3 lore points. Again, this card can be dropped from just in time, so that's very helpful. But it is also a good mid-range card as well. The fact you're questing for 3 lore points, and if your opponent wants to challenge and get rid of it, they're going to have to draw a card. The only downside is it's only got a 2/4 stat line, so chances are it's probably just going to get defeated in a single combat, especially around the 5-drop mark. But very good uncommon. I think it's probably going to see a lot of play, especially in the early days. So you got Megara, pulling the strings. She's a 2-drop, 2/1. When you play this character, chosen character gets +2 attack this turn. It's not that useful in all honesty, because her stat line is so weak itself. Giving something +2 attack is okay. You can probably crash into something that's slightly bigger than what you're buffing up, but it's just probably not worth the inclusion in your deck. You probably want to be playing a more solid 2-drop like Flynn Rider, or even Cruella Deville. Okay, so Mickey Mouse Artful Rogue. So he's a 7-drop uninkable, 6 power, 5 toughness with shift 5. Whenever you play an action, chosen opposing character can't quest during their next turn. In theory, this card is very good, especially in that deck that I mentioned earlier about not being able to quest. However, there isn't a lot of action cards that you can play continuously to stop your opponent from questing. And also, your opponent can still challenge, so you can never kind of quest with this card, because as soon as you do, your opponent is going to just attack it. So that's its problem there. You probably have to pair it with something like Frying Pan to stop your opponent from challenging as well, but chances are they're going to break out of that fairly quickly. Plus the fact you haven't got a lot of playable Mickeys for this card to shift onto. You have got the 3-drop vanilla, but at the moment that's currently not worth playing. I've not seen anyone kind of use this card yet, but it's probably something that we will see in the future. Speaking of that Mickey, here we go. So Mickey Mouse Steamboat Pilot, 3-drop, 3/4 with 1 lore point, no ability. Like I said, it's a vanilla card with a decent stat line to it. It's not going to do much. It is useful to shift onto that Mickey we've just seen, but other than that, it's probably not worth an inclusion. So Mother Gothel, Selfish Manipulator. So she's a 6-drop with 3 attack, 6 toughness, with the brilliant name of Skip the Drama, Stay with Mama. While this character is exerted, opposing characters can't quest. Great if you can protect her, because it really slows your opponent down. However, obviously she needs to be exerted for her to work, which means that she is vulnerable to attacks, and your opponent can still attack. So you're going to have to figure out a combo to stop your opponent from doing that for her to be worthwhile. But so far I've not seen many people use her. So Peter Pan, Never Landing. So he's a 3-drop, 3/2 with Evasive. Evasive is always good. This is one of the cheaper evasives in the game. But unfortunately he does die to fire the cannons, so if you do play in a meta with a lot of steel, chances are he's probably not going to be very good. But, you know, if you enjoy playing it, he is a decent evasive card. Nothing more to it than that, really. Okay, so 2-drop, Tamatoa, Drab Little Crab. So he's 1 attack, 4 toughness, and 1 lore point. The stat line is not bad for a 2-drop. Your opponent's probably going to have to attack it twice to get rid of it. But he doesn't really combo with anything. The Tamatoa that we have in blue doesn't have shift. So this card is just literally on its own. It's fun little artwork though, I enjoy it. But yeah, other than a decent stat line, there's nothing special about him. So Tinkerbell, 4-drop, inkable, most helpful, 2 attack, 3 toughness. She has evasive herself, and it has the ability when you play this character, chosen character gains evasive this turn. So in an aggressive green deck, it means that you can challenge evasive things on your opponent's side, but a lot of the Emerald cards have evasive anyway, so I'm not quite sure how useful this card actually is. It's probably worth an inclusion, but its stat line is not the best in the world for a 4-drop, but it does have 2 lore points going for it. It's honestly meta dependent. If there's a lot of evasive, you probably want to play this card so you can challenge your opponent's evasive things. If there isn't, you probably could play a better 4-drop in your deck. So do it again, action card, return an action card from your discard to your hand. It's a 3-drop uninkable. I believe this is designed to work with the Mickey Mouse that we saw, so you can just use the do it agains and just loop them, just to stop your opponent from questing. But the fact that it costs 3 and is uninkable as well, it makes for a pretty cloggy deck, especially as the Mickey Mouse is uninkable as well. The option is there if you did want to do it. Or if there is another action card that your deck relies on that you want to return, you can always use this card. But so far, I've not seen anyone take advantage of it yet. So, 3-drop, Mother Knows Best. It's a song. Return chosen character to their player's hand. I do like this card. The fact it's uninkable is a bit annoying, but the fact you only need a 3-cost character to bounce something back to your opponent's hand. Genie itself is quite powerful as a 6-drop, so the fact that you can essentially cast this card for free and bounce one of your opponent's bigger things is annoying, especially if you bounce one of their characters that doesn't have an ability when it enters the board, because you really set your opponent back a turn then. Then there are quite a few that you could use it on, but yeah, do like it, do recommend this card. So Stampede is a 1-drop uninkable action card. Deal 2 damage to chosen damaged character. The fact that this card is uninkable is really annoying. I felt that because of the condition on it that you have to choose a damaged character, they could have either made it inkable or it could have been free damage, because this card gets outclassed by Fire the Cannons. So if you literally only have space for either Fire the Cannons or this, you're always going to pick Fire the Cannons. But this card is designed to work with Fire the Cannons in a Steel Emerald deck. Outside of that, I probably wouldn't use it. So here is the item that I mentioned earlier for the 8-drop Genie to use. So it's a 5-drop uninkable action card. Whenever one of your characters quests this turn, each opponent loses 1 lore. Are you going to have a massive wide enough board to get impact from this? Probably not. Plus the fact is that Genie has to quest first to then use the action card, so you don't actually get the benefit from it from the Genie because it's already quested. I don't think it's probably worth using because you're never going to have a wide enough board to actually do it, and it's quite expensive. If it was a song, maybe, but unfortunately it's not. So the only way that this would work is by playing a deck which uses tons and tons of 1-drops. Play this and then make your opponent lose lots of lore, but unfortunately, if your opponent then just board wipes you, they're not going to be that worried about the lore that they've just lost. So I don't think it's got a home yet, but, you know, kind of watch this space. Sudden Chill, so it's a 2-drop inkable song card. Cost 2 or more can sing the song for free. Each opponent chooses and discards a card. So it's a 1-for-1. You're using 1 card to discard 1 card from your opponent. You can use Cruella Deville to sing this, so it doesn't really matter then if your opponent then challenges and banishes her because she gets her ability. You can use Flynn Rider to sing this, which means then your opponent is discarding 1 from this and then 1 from the Flynn Rider if they attack it, which is very good. Emerald has lots of little cool tricks like this, so if there's something you like the idea of playing this, then go for it. You can loop this with Do It Again and also Lady Tremaine if you wanted to play some kind of discard deck, but as it kind of stands, it's probably worth an inclusion. The Beast Is Mine. It's a 3-drop inkable. Chosen character gains Reckless during their next turn. This card is not very good. There are better ways of giving your opponent Reckless that doesn't cost 3 and also uses a card. So yeah, don't use this card. So Vicious Betrayal. Chosen character gets +2 attack this turn. If a villain character is chosen, they get +3 attack instead. It's not bad, however, using these sort of cards is always a -1 in terms of card advantage. If you're really wanting to trade up to something big that your opponent has, I suppose you could argue that it's worth it, but then again, you're still trading 2 of your cards for 1 of theirs, so a lot of the time it's not worth including in your deck. You just rather play better cards that can kind of trade up naturally. But yeah, I wouldn't bother using this one, but it's a fun artwork. Okay, so you got DrFacilier's cards, which is a 2-drop uninkable. You can exert it, you pay 1 less for the next action card you play this turn. If you're playing a lot of action cards and your deck relies on them, then I think you get good value from this. But realistically, you'd have to be playing at least 2 action cards to get any kind of value. Plus it's uninkable as well, so you could give yourself quite a cloggy hand. But like I say, if your deck uses a lot of action cards and you think you're going to get a lot of use out of it, go for it. I just don't know how much use you could possibly get in the current set. So you got Stolen Schmeiter. It's a 2-drop item. You can exert it. Chosen character gets +1 attack this turn. If a character named Aladdin is chosen, he gets +2 attack. Same problem as the Vicious Betrayal, but at least this one is reusable. So if you did feel like you wanted to play some kind of weenie rush deck in green, you could use this card, because you can use it with both the green and red Aladdin. But other than that, it probably hasn't got a lot of use. If you find space for it, cool. If not, no big deal. It probably isn't worth playing anyway. Okay, so that brings us to the end. So that is all the Emerald cards in a nutshell. So Emerald is great if you like messing with your opponent, either discarding their cards, bouncing their stuff, stopping them from questing. It's a very fun element to use. You can often pair it with things like red. You can pair it with amethyst. You can pair it with blue. It pairs with anything. So kind of pick which card you like and what kind of works for you, and then pair it with a colour that works. And I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Right, that's it for today. So stick around, because tomorrow we are bringing you the 4th video in the set. So yeah, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.